Welcome to Charts Today. My name's David Linton, and today's edition for Wednesday, the 13th of April, comes to you from London. And my starting position, always when I approach my screen in the mornings, is what's changed. And I just look down the columns here and look at what's changed. So we've got the VIX volatility down a few percent. We've got palladium back up a few percent. And we've got bond yields still rising. But on the whole, not a lot has changed, and I think that's the key thing I look at. And then I look at my energy screens and just see what's changed in those markets, in European gas and power markets. So it always comes down to what's changed for me. So, and then a quick scan of the news this morning. We've got inflation numbers out in the UK. 7%, the US 8% yesterday. So we've got these big inflation numbers coming, but the market's taking that in its stride, very much the expectation really. And so the dollar is still looking strong. The expectation of interest rate rises there now driving that forward. We're seeing the euro stuck below this 110 level now, bearish below the cloud. Remembering this is my weekly, daily and 60-minute chart, long-term, medium-term and short-term view of the market. So we are seeing that the euro weakness is still a factor, and we've got these downside targets activated, and jitters will come next week in the run-up to the French elections, so that is a factor. Looking at the yen, that's sitting at record highs, and that's really quite key. So the dollar is pushing against the yen to record highs, and so that's looking quite key. In fact, we're breaking out there, and sterling just holding on to this 130 level, but really looking like it will break. Interest rate expectations, of course, coming in on those inflation numbers, you'd think would drive sterling higher, but that's already in the price. So no big reaction on the sterling chart. Against the euro, sterling is looking stronger, back above the 120 level, so it has the upper hand there. Bitcoin's just hanging on to the $40,000 mark, really just testing this long-term cloud, so that's quite key there. And if we look at stock markets, we saw that the S&P 500 index fell again yesterday, only 1/3%, but the fact is we're making lower lows all the time, and we didn't get back above the cloud on the lagging line on the daily chart, so we are seeing the market just turning lower, and also the Nasdaq really looking quite vulnerable there as well. The futures today are up 0.6% on the S&P and 0.8% on the Nasdaq, so it does suggest the market will open higher. I mentioned the VIX volatility was down a few percent, still in the 20s and still short-term bullish. That means the market is still short-term fearful, and we are just seeing gradually that VIX changing. In the 30s, we are much more fearful. Very little change in European markets this morning. The DAX in Germany down 0.5%, the CAC Quarante up 0.16%. Remembering these indices are only 30 and 40 stocks respectively, so a couple of big moves in stocks can actually make a big move on the index, whereas the S&P 500 of course is 500 stocks. Looking at the 400 index in Japan, the Nikkei 400, we are still bearish short term there below the cloud, and China was down nearly 1%, and Shanghai, so still deteriorating and just falling below the cloud there as well. And the Sensex in India, inflationary fears here having an impact as well. The Aussie market actually up 1/3%. The one market that is actually outperforming and bucking the trend, and we've still got this target higher. The Aussie market may still make new all-time highs on the basis it's a resource-laden market. We'll look at the energy mix in a minute, but we've got wheat down 1.5%, still at very inflated prices. And if we look at gold, we're actually at 1972, so just edging higher all the time. We were sitting at that 1930 level for several weeks, really like glue, and that 1800 level last year on the long-term chart, but we're now trending, and gold has some pretty big upside targets. This 2400 target, some 22% higher, is still very much the one that we're looking to. Silver is also up 1% this morning. That's started to move as well. The long-term chart looking good, bullish on all three time frames, of course. So silver looking strong. Platinum and palladium similar. Palladium's seen quite a big seesaw in prices, Russia being a big producer, of course. And if we look at US 10-year yields, they're sitting at 1.82%, 2.8%. So we're really just pushing higher all the time there. So that's really quite key. And we're bullish on all three time frames. 284, 290 are the targets. On the longer term charts, you've got to go to bigger box sizes for the targets there. Let's look at the energy mix. We've got Brent crude up this morning. We went out as bullish to clients. The trend is bullish. We found support yesterday, bounced on that support level, just in a little mini range this morning, but waiting for the breakout. We've got upside targets, suggest that's the way we're going to go. US nat gas looking strong at $6.70. Again, looking like a foregone conclusion that we will break to this $7 mark. We see emissions just really struggling again this morning. We went out as neutral. We're really stuck in this range at the moment, between 75 and 81. So that's quite key, or 82 really. But if we got above 81 now, that would be pretty good for the carbon price. Looking at TTF, we're at 1.5% this morning, really putting in the floor here. So there was the floor in November, then the floor in January, now the floor here that we're putting in. So this 100 euro level looking pretty critical for TTF. MBP up 1.2%, not quite as strong, and the floor just breaking a little bit less clear here on TTF. And if we look at German power, sitting at 199. 200 is a foregone conclusion. We've got targets all over the place. Keep an eye on your 1 minute charts on your OTC, looking very strong indeed. That's it for today. Until tomorrow, happy charting. See you then.